Alright, so today we're going to go into After Effects rather than Maya, and the idea here is to show you how to take the rendered images, either the sequential images from Arnold or the batch render files from the Maya software render, and string them together as an actual MOV or movie clip. So we're going to use After Effects, and I'm not going to go through the entire After Effects program and go through the entire interface here. So basically just going to go step by step on how to do this quickly, and any more After Effects information you'll need to go and find that elsewhere. But for now, let's just string these together. So in After Effects, what we need to do first is set up a composition for this. So we can go up here to Composition and say we want to create a new composition. Go ahead and give it a name, and I'm going to call this my spaceship animation. And if you want to call it underscore comp or whatever, just to remind you that that's the composition. The size is going to be whatever size you rendered your animation in. So I did mine at 1280 by 720. You might want to select lock aspect ratio. Definitely keep the pixel aspect ratio at square pixels, and make sure the frame rate matches up with the frame rate you rendered at. So we did 30 frames per second in Maya, so we'll keep it that way here in After Effects. The other thing here is where it says the duration. Now, we did a 10-second animation. Here we have a duration of 20 seconds, and that means it's going to set up our timeline with that much time on it, so that would be plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And when you do that, you get a spaceship comp, the composition that we created right here in your project view. You'll see that the actual size, or the window for the video, comes up here in the composition window, and then down here is your timeline. So this is the actual timeline here. All of this is your layers. So I can actually go in here and maybe give myself a little more space. But for now, what we'll do is we need to bring in the actual files. Okay, so let me readjust my interface here. So we have 300 individual images, and I'm just going to bring in the ones from the Arnold Sequence and image. It's the same way, either whether you're doing the Maya batch render or the Arnold Sequence render. So I'm going to go to my project window here, and I'm going to right click right inside this project area, and I'm going to go to Import File, and immediately we've thrown into our import file. Let me make this a little smaller so you can see it. Our import file window, and you want to go browse for those files. So remember, on mine, I've used mine under users. Mine went to the Maya default project, so my documents, Maya projects. Oops, I went the wrong way. Default and images, and then I have an Arnold render file here. So we'll see all 300 images inside this file. We only need to select the first one, and then go to the bottom of the window here and make sure it says import as footage, and that sequence options, you have JPEG sequence turned on, or whatever file type this, whether it's a PNG or target or whatever it is. And I oftentimes will hit force alphabetical order just to be on the safe side, and then just hit import. So this brings everything in right here as a single file, and it's got all 300 images in there. So we just need to drag this onto the timeline. So I'll click and drag it and drop it onto the timeline, and here you can see the images in here. Now I'm not sure, mine may have rendered at a slightly smaller scale, but they're all in there the right size, right? We've got exactly 10 seconds of animation here. I'm going to increase the size of mine. So in here, if we select the little drop down arrow on the layer, we can go to transform, and you can see the scale is set to 100. Make sure the little chain is turned on, and we can increase by just clicking and dragging across that number. Now mine looks a little darker than what I'd like as well. So Arnold has the ability to work with these videos similar to the way you would do in Photoshop. So we could bring in like a brightening tool. So go ahead and select make sure the video is selected down here in the timeline, and we can go up here to Effect and go to Color Correction and choose Brightness and Contrast. And you'll find that it'll pop up here. What used to be the project window is now kind of a focus on that effect that you brought in. So you'll see brightness and contrast. I can just click and drag across that number and increase the brightness on that to whatever I think looks best. I went 120 on mine. And now you'll see we've got our animation, and it seems to be working pretty well. I've got 20 seconds on the timeline here. Maybe I'd want to loop this one more time. So let's make this loop all the way to the end. So it's, instead of 10 seconds, we'll just go 20 seconds. So go ahead and go back up here to your project. Now you know I'm in the effects control here, so I'm going to click over to the left. You'll see the project tab. This shows me all of the assets that I have in the project, and I'm going to go to the sequence here, Arnold Render Sequence, and go ahead and right click on there and go down to Interpret Footage and choose Main. And in the main, you will see a lot of different options here, but if you go to the bottom or under Other Options, you'll see an option here for looping. So let's loop this twice, since our timeline is twice as long as the animation, and then hit OK. And now you'll see that it looks like the animation here, at least the bar, extended all the way out to 20, but half of it's still at 10. So go ahead and move your mouse over that and click and drag the edge all the way to the end. Now you'll see that the animation will come back down at 10 and then starts back up and goes again. So this is a great way, especially if you're doing like a walk cycle or something, you want someone to be able to look at your animation and see it over and over. You know, loop it however many times you need to do that. Alright, so let's say we're all finished with this. We've brought in our sequence, we've improved the brightness of it, and we've looped it. So let's go ahead and render this out as a movie file. So what we'll do, make sure you have this animation timeline down here selected. You'll see the little blue line around it. Go up here to Composition, so Add to Render Queue. You'll see the render queue pops up down here in place of where the timeline was, and you'll have these little pieces of blue text here, best settings, lossless, and then whatever the file name is. Let's go through these real quick. So I'm going to click on best settings first, make sure quality is set to best, make sure the resolution is full, so it's 1280 by 720, and make sure that the frame rate is the frame rate you set up previously, which is the 30 frames per second. So I'm going to hit OK. For output module, click on the little lossless here. This is where we'll set up the file type we want. So click Format. I'm going to use QuickTime for this. And under Format Options here, we're going to change, just double check what kind of video codec you're going to use. I'm going to keep the H.264 that's on here now. That typically turns out nice and clean with a low data rate. So quality, make sure it's set to 100, and then you'll see the OK button at the bottom. Just hit OK. Make sure your video output is taking the colors, and whether or not you have audio. We don't have audio, so I could select audio output and just choose to turn it off. But if you had audio, select what the kilohertz that you want to use, whether it's stereo or mono, and hit OK. So that's ready to go. The last thing we have to do is tell it where we want to save it and what we want to call it. So click on the little file name here where it says output 2. And I'm going to save it in my folder for this actual animation. So I'll go to week 9 videos, and I'll create a new folder for this. I'll just place it in there. I'm going to call it spaceship animation, and I'll just call it complete. And you can see here it's going to save it as a QuickTime movie file. Hit the save button, and you're ready to go. So all we have to do is hit the render button right up here on the render queue, and you'll see the progress bar going across, and it'll give you a little chime when it's all completed. And there we go. So it won't bring it up automatically, but what I can do is go to my file where I saved it, and here it is. And it runs through both loops. Okay, and it's going to loop again. I'm going to go ahead and quit it, and now you can see though that that is the process for rendering. So both the Arnold render and the Maya batch render will work the same way. You're just bringing it into to After Effects to complete the rendering. So of course you can see here we added brightness to this, but you could add anything you want. You could composite additional animations on top of it, bring in your text, bring in additional video, visual effects, that sort of things, and that's how you can finish it off. Alright, that's all we had for this video.